If that's not the international symbol for this country, I don't know what is. We're previewing every team going to the World Cup, and we start with Luis Suarez, Fighting Fiend, and Uruguay. We're in the final group of the World Cup, Group H. It's Portugal, Uruguay, South Korea, and Ghana. And Uruguay is the pot 2 team. How did they end up here? Well, it actually was uncomfortable. I mean, that's not a surprise. South American qualifying is always brutal, but Brazil and Argentina were so far ahead that there was a massive pack of Uruguay, Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, Chile, and Paraguay that basically existed all of qualifying that couldn't separate from each other. Uruguay was able to separate at the end, but things were a little bit tedious. Their on-again, off-again form at the beginning culminated in 5 winless matches right in the middle of qualifying, 4 of which were losses, and it ended with a 3-0 loss away to Bolivia. 3-0. But then Uruguay turned it on. They won their last 4 matches, including Peru and Chile, in order to essentially qualify going away when it looked for a little while like they might not qualify. And this is mainly because of their ability to perform against other teams going to the World Cup from South America. Those would be Brazil, Argentina, and Ecuador. In 6 matches, Uruguay mustered 3 points. They won the easiest possible game against Ecuador. Every other one of those matches, they lost. And that's Ecuador at home, and only 1-0. They lost at home to Brazil 2-0 and away to Brazil 4-1. They lost away to Argentina 3-0 and then at home against Argentina 1-0. And they lost away to Ecuador 4-2. Now, against all the teams that didn't make the World Cup, Uruguay only lost 1 game, and it was the away match against Bolivia that really set off all the alarm bells that eventually Uruguay was able to silence with those wins at the end. But it's not a record that inspires confidence that Uruguay is in for another run into the knockouts of the World Cup where they can beat the best teams in the world like they did in 2018. They beat Portugal in the round of 16. But what might inspire Uruguay the most is their overall history in the competition, which, look, they've won it. They're one of the few teams in the world that have ever won the World Cup. They won it twice. They won it in 1930 and 1950. The bad news is basically nobody on those teams is still alive. What it's important to remember is that Uruguay might be a nation that you only know about because of soccer, because that's who they are. At the 1924 Olympics in France, the leaders of Uruguay considered the winning of the gold medal in men's football, men's soccer, at that Olympic Games to be their announcement on the world stage, their introduction to the world. They won the gold medal again in 1928. It became part of their national identity. People around the world knew who Uruguay was because of those results. And then the ensuing World Cups after that, it's intrinsic to their entire society. Fun fact of the day, Uruguay has not been to the Olympics in men's football, soccer, whatever, since 1928. When they won the gold medal. They have not qualified since. Pretty cool, I know. Oh, by the way, we are going to live stream a watch along to every World Cup match at the Twitch link down in the description. I will see you there. Oh, that was awful. What was that? But that core nature of the game to Uruguay had made it even more dangerous and devastating when they missed the World Cup 3 out of 4 times from 1994 to 2006. They made it in 2002, but got grouped. They didn't even win a game. But this new generation, the Edinson Cavani, the Luis Suarez, who are now entering their 4th World Cup, they brought Uruguay back into the fold. And in the last 3 World Cups, Uruguay has made the knockout stages each time and is back on the pedestal that its national pride demands. 2018, Uruguay got a really nice group draw with the Russia, who were the hosts, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. They won all 3 games. They didn't concede a goal, and they breezed their way into the round of 16, where I already told you they managed to beat Portugal thanks to 2 beautiful goals by Edinson Cavani. And there's no shame in losing to France in the quarterfinal, which is what happened to them. They got there and lost 2-0. Pretty straightforward loss for Uruguay, but the second time in 3 World Cups that they got at least to the last 8 teams, which is very impressive. And it's a core memory that Uruguay can hang on to. But what about Copa America? How have they been doing there? Because Copa America was just last year. Honestly, the same that they did in qualifying, it tells the same story. Uruguay's real international dominance is still evident in Copa America. They've won it 15 times, which is tied for the record with Argentina. Actually 6 more than Brazil, by the way, 15-9. The most recent one was in 2011, where some of the older guys like Suarez and Cavani and Godin on the back line, they were already in the picture at that time. But in the 2021 Copa America, Uruguay had a group with Argentina, Chile, Paraguay, and Bolivia, and they won 2 matches. Paraguay and Bolivia. They lost to Argentina. They can't beat the teams better than them, but they take care of the teams below them. This gets them into the knockout stage where they draw Colombia at 0 and they lose on penalties. They actually had a 0-0 draw against Colombia in World Cup qualifying as well. It just seemed to be right here, but Uruguay does have the experience and the quality to take care of the teams that they should. And they did that again at Copa America in 2021. What they'll need at this World Cup, if they're going to make a serious impact and maybe go for a miraculous third title, is somebody that can take it up a notch for them. And that's my player to watch on this team, Federico Valverde. He plays for Real Madrid and is a brilliant up-and-coming world-class attacking midfielder who missed the last World Cup. He was savagely cut in the final cut down from 26 to 23 before the 2018 World Cup. But now he's 24 years old, he has 44 caps, and is objectively a baller. He's also very athletic. He doesn't just have that sharp technical cutting edge, he's a really good athlete that can push the pace of a game. And that aggression, that technical ability, combined with the fact that even though he's already ascended to the highest level at the club level, he hasn't had a shot at the World Cup yet. This could be one of those players that comes out of this World Cup as a completely different player in the minds and hearts of everybody around the world than they were going in, where you know who he is, but you don't think of him as that star yet. He can be, and honestly already is. He's got 6 goals and 2 assists in 14 matches at Real Madrid out of the midfield. And he's gonna have plenty of room to work, because Diego Alonso, the coach of Uruguay, loves lining him up in a 4-4-2. He also uses a 4-3-3, but that's just not as fun to shout. The 4-4-2 with the 2 strikers is crucial because they have 3 very good strikers. Cavani and Suarez, who at 35 is playing domestically in Uruguay just to get himself up and going for one more World Cup, and Darwin Nunez, who gets a lot of hate but has honestly had a pretty good start to his career in the Premier League at Liverpool. They have 3 good options, in my opinion, in the midfield. Valverde, who we already talked about if you're talking this double pivot, Rodrigo Bentancur, who you might have seen at Tottenham, and then Lucas Torreira, who I've always felt was a disrespected, space-eating midfielder who's moved over to Turkey. The center-back pairing's the same. It's Jose Maria Jimenez, I did my best, and Diego Godin. The fullbacks are great. It's Ronald Araujo. They've used him over on the right, and Napoli's Matias Oliveira has been used on the left. They also have Matias Vinha, who's a guy that plays in the top 5 leagues. The wingers, Facundo Palestri from Manchester United, Georgian De Esqueta, who was playing a bunch in Serie A. Now he's in Brazil. He's an X-factor. He had 10 assists in Serie A in 1 season. But my big question on the team is the goalkeeping spot, right? I love the starting 11 they can put together, but the goalkeeping spot is weird. Muslera is the long-time number 1 on this team, but after the 3-0 loss away to Bolivia, he was pulled. Sergio Roche of Nacional stepped in and was the goalkeeper for that great run at the end of qualifying. He's been the goalkeeper in the friendlies. He plays domestically in Uruguay. He's the captain of the best team in Uruguay, the one that also has Luis Suarez on it right now. But are they really going to stick with him at the World Cup, or do you go to Muslera, who's clearly fallen out a bit? But Muslera's got that World Cup experience. This is his 4th World Cup. I don't know. I'm glad I'm not a coach. I don't want to have to make that decision, but either way, you've got an out-of-form aging Muslera or Sergio Roche in his 1st World Cup coming from the domestic league of Uruguay. And how much will that factor into whether Uruguay can get out of this group? I love Uruguay's talent level. What I don't love is their form. Their ability to beat teams that they are better than and then lose to teams that they are worse than probably won't come in handy against Portugal, who will also be out for revenge after the round of 16 at the last World Cup. I could see Uruguay finishing anywhere from 1st to 3rd in this group. I do believe that South Korea in particular has the quality to test Uruguay. South Korea will have the best player on the field. Son Heung-min will be the best player on the field against Uruguay. I will reserve my predictions on where Uruguay is going to finish until we finish the last 2 videos, South Korea and Ghana. But it's not going to be comfortable. There's no way this group is comfortable. Ghana has improved a lot in international recruitment, and I'm very concerned, as you can probably tell by Uruguay's form. Again, love their talent, don't like their form. It's not good. It's not as good as it was going into previous World Cups. But how do you pick against them? They keep getting to the knockouts. They still have the talent. They're just a little old. If you want to keep watching this series, I have great news. We're in the final group, which means we've previewed like every other team at the World Cup already. And if you didn't notice, I'm pointing at the playlist right now. It's right there. All the binging your heart desires. Subscribe.